So let us now discuss different types of shock. But this is a very important topic, and you might be asked questions regarding types of shock, and you might be given scenarios and asked to diagnose the type of shock and write down the mechanism of that specific type of shock and how it is going to be treated. So let us begin with different types of shock. First of all, we have the hypovolemic shock, then the neurogenic shock, anaphylactic shock, septic shock, and cardiogenic shock. So let us discuss all of these in detail one by one. First of all, we are going to discuss the hypovolemic shock. As the name indicates, there is reduced volume of blood, hypovolemia, and this results in inadequacy of circulation. So what can be the probable causes of hypovolemic shock? The biggest cause of hypovolemic shock is hemorrhage. Whenever there is hemorrhage or blood loss, this is going to result in hypovolemia or hypovolemic shock or hemorrhage shock. अच्छा बेटे, अगर आपको सिनेरियो आए ब्लड लॉस का, लाइक इन एन एक्सीडेंट और समथिंग, देन यू आर गोइंग टू मेंशन हेमरेजिक शॉक. But if there is no hemorrhage, but there is volume loss due to intestinal obstruction or severe burns or contusions of the body, then you are going to mention hypovolemic shock. If the scenario indicates towards hemorrhage, then you are going to mention hemorrhagic shock. Basically hemorrhagic shock भी hypovolemic shock की ही type है, क्योंकि इसमें hypovolemia हुआ होता है. So how does blood volume decrease during intestinal obstruction? What happens is, suppose this is your intestine and this is your blood vessel which is supplying your intestine. Whenever your intestines are blocked, there is accumulation of waste products within your intestine, especially bacteria. As you know that there are a lot of bacteria within your gut. Whenever there is obstruction of intestine, there is accumulation of bacteria and other waste products. These bacteria are going to produce toxins which are going to cause your blood vessels to dilate and become more permeable. When these blood vessels will dilate, their permeability will increase and fluid is going to move out of the blood vessels into the interstitial space. Now what happens is, the fluid blood which is left behind is now reduced in volume because its plasma or its fluid has moved out from the blood vessels into the interstitial space. So let me repeat, whenever there is intestinal obstructions, there is going to be produced toxic substances and especially toxins produced by bacteria. These toxins are going to cause vasodilation and increased permeability. Whenever there is increased permeability of blood vessels, fluid tends to move out of or leak out of the blood vessels and accumulate in interstitial space. When this happens, the blood volume is reduced, and when the blood volume is reduced, your cardiac output is also reduced, and this leads to shock. Same happens in burns. When there are burns, your blood vessels lose their integrity and become leaky, and fluid is lost from your blood vessels. And especially when the skin is burned, you know your skin is protective and it keeps your body covered, and it does not allow water to be evaporated from your body. It is a waxy layer which does not allow water to be lost from the surface of the body. But when your skin is lost, your blood vessels are denuded and your blood vessels are exposed to the environment, there is very rapid loss of fluid from these blood vessels. And also because of damage from heat and burns, your blood vessels become leaky and a lot of fluid is lost from these sites of burn. Same is the case with extensive contusions of the body. Now what are contusions? Contusions are closed injuries in which there is no blood loss or no hemorrhage. This happens when you bump your into something, or whenever there is deep tissue injury but there is no bleeding. So when there are extensive contusions in the body, what happens is there is deep tissue damage despite there being no hemorrhage. So these damaged tissues excrete such substances which cause vasodilation of the blood vessels around them, and these blood vessels become very leaky, and a lot of fluid is leaked out of these blood vessels into the interstitial space and causes swelling, and this reduced blood volume can lead to hypovolemic shock if the contusions are very extensive, such as in accidents and in other crush injuries, etc., where there is no blood loss. So, let us now discuss the mechanism of hypovolemic shock, but before we discuss the mechanism of hypovolemic shock, I would like to discuss some basic knowledge with you. You must remember what is cardiac output. Cardiac output is the amount of blood which is pumped by the heart per minute. And what is venous return? Basically, venous return is the amount of blood which returns to the heart per minute. Okay, so cardiac output is the amount of blood which is being pumped by the heart, and venous return is the amount of blood which is returning back to the heart. And you have to remember that venous return is directly proportional to and almost equal to the cardiac output. So they have a direct relationship, and venous return is almost cardiac output is almost equal to venous return. So from the previous lecture you might remember that the biggest determinant of venous return is the mean systemic filling pressure. Now, what is the mean systemic filling pressure? So if you experimentally stop the heart and you allow all of your blood to equally distribute among the circulatory tree, and then at any point you see the pressure which is being exerted by the blood on the vessel walls, this pressure is known as mean systemic filling pressure. It is around 7 millimeter mercury, and this is the force with which the blood moves towards the heart. So mean systemic filling pressure is the biggest determinant of venous return. Mean systemic filling pressure depends upon two things: the vasomotor tone, which is the condition of the blood vessels. If they are constricted, the mean systemic filling pressure is going to be high and venous return is going to be high. So the vasomotor tone determines the mean systemic filling pressure. If the vasomotor tone is lost and the blood vessels dilate, of course the pressure within them is going to fall and the mean systemic filling pressure is going to be reduced, and there is going to be reduced venous return. The second important determinant of mean systemic filling pressure is blood volume. If the volume of blood is high, the mean systemic filling pressure is going to be high, but if the blood volume is reduced, the mean systemic filling pressure is going to be reduced and the venous return is going to be reduced. ठीक है बेटे, अब आपको ये तमाम knowledge होना चाहिए before you start studying any type of shock. Let me repeat, cardiac output is the amount of blood which is pumped out by heart per minute, and it is equal to the amount of blood which is returning to the heart, that is venous return. And what is venous return determined by? It is determined by the mean systemic filling pressure. What is the mean systemic filling pressure? It is the pressure exerted by the blood on the vessel walls when the heart is allowed to stop and the blood is allowed to be equally distributed in the circulatory tree, and this mean systemic filling pressure determines the amount of venous return. And this mean systemic filling pressure depends upon two factors. The first factor is vasomotor tone. If the vasomotor tone is decreased, the venous return will decrease, and also it depends upon blood volume. If the blood volume is decreased, the mean systemic filling pressure will decrease and the venous return will decrease, and when the venous return will decrease, the cardiac output will also decrease. I hope you understood this very important concept. If you did not understand, please stop this video, rewind and listen to it again, because this is going to be very important and very helpful to you for understanding the types of shock and their mechanism. So what happens in hypovolemic shock? First of all, there is decreased blood volume. Now this can be due to any reason. This can be due to hemorrhage, this can be due to burns or contusions or intestinal obstruction, etc. When the blood volume decreases, I just told you that the mean systemic filling pressure is also going to decrease. When the mean systemic filling pressure decreases, your venous return will decrease. When the venous return will decrease, your cardiac output will decrease, and when the cardiac output will decrease, the tissues will not be able to get adequate or enough blood flow, and this will lead to shock, and this is known as hypovolemic shock. So once you have understood the basis of venous return and mean systemic filling pressure, this is going to be just piece of cake for you, and you can easily understand what this means. So let me repeat, whenever there is reduced blood volume, you know blood volume is an important determinant of mean systemic filling pressure, and when the blood volume will reduce, mean systemic filling pressure will reduce. When the mean systemic filling pressure will reduce, your venous return will decrease, and when your venous return will decrease, your cardiac output will decrease, and when your cardiac output will decrease, your tissues are not going to be able to get enough nutrients and oxygen, which will result in shock. Now let us discuss कि hypovolemic shock में से question किस तरह आ सकता है. You could be asked to diagnose a case of a person who has 60% burns on his body and is brought to the medical emergency, or there is a child who has been experiencing intestinal obstruction for the last 2 days and is brought to the medical emergency, or any person who was brought to hospital after a road traffic accident and who has been bleeding on the road for the last 10 to 20 or 30 minutes, and all of these patients are going to have reduced arterial pressure, and they are going to be pale looking, and they are going to be having a cold clammy touch to their skin, यानी कि उनकी स्किन स्वेटी होगी, कोल्ड होगी, और क्योंकि परफ्यूजन नहीं हो रही होगी स्किन के अंदर पूरी, कार्डियक आउटपुट जब रिड्यूस्ड है तो ब्लड सप्लाई रिड्यूस हुई होगी स्किन की, एंड द एक्सट्रीमिटीज़ वुड बी कोल्ड, and you will be asked to diagnose this patient, and then you are going to mention this person is suffering from hypovolemic shock, and you are going to mention the cause, that it was due to hemorrhage or it was due to intestinal obstruction, and how intestinal obstruction causes hypovolemia. You have to mention that, and then you are going to mention this mechanism. This is how the hypovolemic shock develops, and this is the basic physiology behind the hypovolemic shock. So this is how you are going to be asked questions about hypovolemic shock. Let us now move on to the second type of shock, which is known as neurogenic shock. As the name indicates, this is the shock which is caused due to nervous damage or due to nervous causes. And what can be the causes? Deep general anesthesia or spinal anesthesia or brain damage. These are the scenarios which can be given to you in MCQs or SCQs, that a person underwent general anesthesia, or a person was given spinal anesthesia, or a person was brought to emergency with brain damage after a road traffic accident. So all of these patients will be showing the typical features of shock, like pallor of skin and cold extremities, and decreased arterial pressure, and all of this is going to indicate that they are in shock. And what is the reason for neurogenic shock? As I already told you that your vasomotor tone is controlled by your vasomotor center, which is present in your brain stem, and this vasomotor tone is very important to maintain your normal circulatory function. As I mentioned before, that this vasomotor tone will determine your mean systemic filling pressure, which determines your venous return. So whenever general anesthesia is given, or spinal anesthesia is given, or there is brain damage or damage to the vasomotor center, the vasomotor center will not be able to carry out its normal function and keep your arteries constricted and your blood vessels constricted and maintain their vasomotor tone. When this vasomotor tone is going to be lost, there is going to be vasodilation all over the body, and this is going to reduce the mean systemic filling pressure. So let us now discuss the neurogenic shock step by step. So what happens is whenever there is decreased vasomotor tone, either due to general anesthesia or spinal anesthesia, when these drugs affect the vasomotor center and the vasomotor center loses its ability to maintain the vasomotor tone, or there is brain damage due to any kind of accidents or road traffic accident, etc., the vasomotor tone is going to decrease. When the vasomotor tone is decreased, there is going to be reduced mean systemic filling pressure. As I told you, mean systemic filling pressure depends upon vasomotor tone and blood volume. So when the mean systemic filling pressure is going to reduce, the venous return is going to reduce. When the venous return is reduced, the cardiac output is decreased, and when the cardiac output is decreased, the body is going to experience shock. So this is very simple. You have to remember that if either blood volume is reduced or vasomotor tone is reduced, it is going to reduce the mean systemic filling pressure, which is going to reduce the venous return, which is going to reduce the cardiac output, which is going to result in shock. So ये steps बेटे आपको common मिलेंगे different types of shock में, and you have to remember how this mechanism takes place. And let us now move on to the third type of shock, which is known as anaphylactic shock or histamine shock. It is due to allergic reactions. Very severe allergic reactions can lead to shock. Now what happens is whenever there is an antigen antibody reaction, it causes the release of histamine and slow reacting substances of anaphylaxis. आपको ये बात पता होनी चाहिए कि your mast cells and your basophil cells have an antibody on their surface, the IgE type of antibody, and these basophils and mast cells are full of histamine and slow reacting substance of anaphylaxis and other chemicals which are mediators of inflammation in allergy. So whenever an allergen, for example a pollen, enters your body and attaches to the antibody on the surface of mast cells, there is degranulation of mast cells. These mast cells and basophils burst and let out histamine and slow reacting substances of anaphylaxis, etc. So what do these substances like histamine and slow reacting substance of anaphylaxis do? They cause vasodilation and increased permeability of the capillaries. ठीक है, ये histamine जो है it is going to act on the blood vessels and it is going to cause vasodilation of the arteries, and when the vessels will dilate, the pores between them will open up and there is going to be increased permeability of the capillaries and the fluid is going to leak out of these vessels. So what is going to happen? Due to vasodilation there is going to be reduced vasomotor tone, and due to increased permeability the blood volume is going to reduce, and both of these factors are going to reduce the mean systemic filling pressure. When the mean systemic filling pressure is reduced, the venous return will be reduced, and when the venous return is reduced, cardiac output is going to be reduced, and reduced cardiac output is going to result in shock. So let me repeat again, whenever there is an allergic reaction in your body, a lot of histamine is released. This histamine is going to cause vasodilation and increased permeability of your blood vessels. जब vasodilation होगी तो जाहिर है आपकी वेजोमोटर टोन कम हो जाएगी, और जब परमिएबिलिटी इंक्रीज होगी तो फ्लूइड लीक आउट करेगा फ्रॉम द कैपिलरीज इनटू द इंटरस्टिशियल स्पेस, और पीछे जो ब्लड वॉल्यूम रह जाएगा वो कम हो जाएगा. सो रिड्यूस्ड ब्लड वॉल्यूम टुगेदर विद reduced vasomotor tone due to vasodilation are going to decrease your mean systemic filling pressure as we discussed before. और उसके आगे वही cascade of events चलेगा जो हम पहले भी discuss कर चुके हैं कि mean systemic filling pressure will reduce your venous return, which will reduce your cardiac output, which will result in shock. सो इसमें सिनेरियो किस तरह आ सकता है? किसी भी ड्रग का रिएक्शन आ सकता है कि चाइल्ड वाज ब्रॉट टू द इमरजेंसी आफ्टर हिस्ट्री ऑफ टेकिंग पेंसिलिन और एनी अदर ड्रग, एंड आफ्टर दैट द चाइल्ड कोलैप्स्ड एंड उसका मीन आर्टियल प्रेशर रिड्यूस हो गया, द चाइल्ड वाज पेल लुकिंग एंड द स्किन वाज कोल्ड एंड क्लैमी एंड स्वेटी to touch, and what is the diagnosis? So you can write the diagnosis anaphylactic shock, and this is how it was developed. Then let us move on to the fourth type of shock, which is known as septic shock. This happens when there is sepsis in the body. What is sepsis? Sepsis is the dissemination of bacterial infection. Dissemination का क्या मतलब होता है कि इन्फेक्शन पहले एक जगह थी और वहाँ से वो डिसएमिनेट हो गई और फैल गई थ्रू आउट द बॉडी. दिस इज़ वेन एवर bacteria or toxins gain access to your blood flow or to your bloodstream, and when once they enter your blood, they are going to be disseminated all over the body. So this is one of the most common causes of death, shock related causes of death, and septic shock along with cardiogenic shock. Cardiogenic shock हम आगे पढ़ेंगे. These two are most common causes of death because of shock: septic shock and cardiogenic shock. So what happens is, whenever there is disseminated bacterial infection, and this bacterial infection gains access to these bacteria and the toxins gain access to your blood, and through blood they are dispersed all over your body, this may lead to shock. Now what can be the causes? Peritonitis. What is peritonitis? Are you aware of the term peritoneum? It is a covering within your abdominal cavities and your pelvic cavities, which cover most of your organs, and this is peritoneum is a protective layer. So whenever there is any infection within your peritoneum, it causes the inflammation of peritoneum. This is known as peritonitis. Any other infection due to streptococci or staphylococci, for example, any infection of the skin or any other respiratory tract infection, if these bacteria and their toxins gain access to your blood, they can cause disseminated infection. Then there can be generalized gangrenous infections. Gangrene क्या होता है कि जब किसी टिश्यू को enough blood supply नहीं मिलती, the tissue starts to die, and this is known as gangrene. And from this gangrenous infection, the bacteria or the toxins can spread to peripheral tissues through blood. Same can happen in kidney or urinary tract infection. So bacteria from anywhere in the body can disperse to different parts of the body and cause septic shock. So you must remember, if you are being asked to diagnose septic shock, you might be given some of these examples, any one of these examples. Let us see now how the septic shock develops. What is the mechanism? First of all, there are present bacteria within your body at any location within your skin, your GIT, your respiratory tract, and these bacteria are going to produce toxins which are known as endotoxins. One example of such toxins is endotoxins. These are the most common types of toxins which cause septic shock. What do these endotoxins do? They cause inflammation of the tissues and the blood vessels, and they cause vasodilation and increased permeability. And like we discussed before in the anaphylactic shock, whenever there is vasodilation and increased permeability, this is going to result in reduced mean systemic filling pressure. When the mean systemic filling pressure is decreased, the venous return is decreased, the cardiac output is decreased, and this is going to result in shock. Let us now discuss some features which are specific to septic shock, and these features are going to help you differentiate between septic shock and other types of shock. So the first feature which is specific to septic shock is high grade fever. There is always present high grade fever because of infection, and there is going to be vasodilation because of inflammation and increased metabolism of the tissues. There is going to be agglutination and sludging of blood. As I told you before, that when the tissues are damaged and there is reduced blood flow, there is going to be a secretion of acidic enzymes and acidic contents into the blood, which is going to cause the blood to agglutinate and block blood vessels. And another specific feature of the septic shock is disseminated intravascular coagulation. As you already studied in the unit of blood, DIC is a feature of sepsis. Whenever there is sepsis in the body, microclots are going to form all over the body in blood vessels and cause micro blockages. So these are the features of septic shock. There are some differences in patients with septic shock and other types of shock. The patient who is suffering from septic shock will appear red and hot as compared to patients which are suffering from any other type of shock. Why? Because the patient is going to be suffering from fever and vasodilation or inflammation all over the body. So this patient is going to be warm or hot to touch, and his skin would be red or it would be blushed because of inflammation and vasodilation. While the patients who are suffering from other types of shock always look pale and have cold and clammy skin because of inadequate blood supply to skin and limbs. The warm peripheries of the patient suffering from septic shock is due to vasodilation all over the body, while other types of shock the patients have cold and clammy skin because of inadequate circulation. So let us move on to the fifth type of shock, which is known as cardiogenic shock. This is one of the most common types of shock which leads to death, and it is due to myocardial infarctions, or it can be due to arrhythmias or cardiac tamponade. Now, what is myocardial infarction? Whenever there is reduced blood supply to the tissues of the heart, these tissues can experience damage or even death, and this is known as myocardial infarction. Or whenever there are severe arrhythmias, disturbed rhythm of the heart, it can be atrial fibrillation or atrial flutters, which can cause to form clots and cause cardiogenic shock. It can also be due to cardiac tamponade. Now, what is cardiac tamponade? As you know, that heart is covered by a covering which is known as pericardium. Whenever there is accumulation of fluid between the pericardium and heart, this condition is known as cardiac tamponade, and in this condition the heart cannot contract or relax like it normally does, and it affects the contractility of the heart, and all of these conditions can lead to cardiogenic shock. So आपको सिनेरियो किस तरह आ सकता है कि a patient who experienced myocardial infarction or a heart attack a few minutes back is brought to the emergency and is pale looking, and his extremities are cold, and his heart rate and his arterial pressure is reduced. What type of shock is this person suffering from, and give the mechanism. Or you can be asked about a person who is experiencing abnormal rhythm, as shown by ECG, is experiencing atrial fibrillation, and and is also showing different symptoms of shock, as I mentioned before, pallor of skin, cold skin, etc. And then you have to mention that this is due to cardiogenic shock, and you also have to explain the mechanism. So let us now discuss the mechanism of cardiogenic shock. So whenever there is damage to the tissue of the heart, like after a heart attack or myocardial infarction, the heart is now unable to perform its normal pumping action, and this leads to decreased cardiac output. When there is decreased cardiac output, the tissues are not going to get their required amount of oxygen and nutrients, and this will lead to shock. So this is how the cardiogenic shock takes place. Let us now discuss the effects of shock on body. So no matter what kind of shock it is, there is always going to be decreased metabolism, except in septic shock. Why is there going to be decreased metabolism? Suppose this is a tissue and it is not getting enough blood supply, of course its metabolism is going to reduce, but this is not the case in septic shock. What happens in septic shock is when there is sepsis and there are bacteria and toxins present in your blood, they enter your tissue, and it is the specific characteristic of toxins and bacteria that they can increase the metabolism of the tissues by increasing the temperature. So in septic shock there is increased metabolism of the tissues, that is why a lot of heat is being produced in the form of fever or high grade fever, while in other types of shock the metabolism is reduced because of reduced blood supply. Then there is a second effect of shock, which is weakness, which can be seen in all patients of shock. The patient is very weak, sometimes they are even unconscious when they are brought to medical emergency. There is decreased body temperature because of reduced perfusion or blood supply to the peripheries of the body, of course, except in septic shock. In septic shock, the body temperature is raised. The patient may be experiencing confusion or loss of consciousness. There is going to be reduced renal function, reduced urine output, and this is because of reduced blood flow to the kidney. The heart rate will be increased. This is because of the mechanisms of the body like baroreceptor reflex and CNS ischemic response. This is a protective mechanism of the body. So, in initial stages of shock, the heart rate is going to be increased to try to overcome this shock. But as the shock progresses from the non-progressive stage to progressive stage, heart rate is going to decrease, and ultimately the heart is going to stop if the shock progresses to irreversible stage. Okay, and there is also going to be sweating because of sympathetic discharge within the body. There is going to be increased thirst, as you already know, when the blood volume is reduced, the thirst center within your body is activated and the patient is going to be extremely thirsty. And if the shock is very severe, there is going to be multiple organ failure within the body and it may lead to death. So, what are the treatments of shock? The treatment of shock depends upon the type of shock. So, for example, in hypovolemic shock, which is due to hemorrhage, you are going to transfuse blood, because the best replacement for blood loss is blood transfusion. So, if there is a person who has experienced blood loss, you are going to transfuse blood. But if blood is not available, then you have to transfuse plasma or plasma replacements such as dextran, drips of dextran solutions. And if a person is dehydrated, you have to provide electrolyte solutions. These are fluids with electrolytes like sodium and potassium. And if the patient is suffering from neurogenic shock or anaphylactic shock, you have to use sympathomimetic drugs. What are sympathomimetic drugs? These are drugs which mimic the function of epinephrine and norepinephrine. So, you can also inject some drugs which mimic the effect of epinephrine and norepinephrine, and you can use adrenaline injections and other drugs which can overcome the neurogenic and anaphylactic shocks. You can also give anti-allergy and steroids in anaphylactic shock. Then there are some other treatments which can be provided, such as the head down and legs up position. This increases venous return. You can also give oxygen therapy so that tissues are not deprived of oxygen, and as I mentioned before, you can give steroid injections which can strengthen the heart and stabilize the lysosomes so that lysosomes do not become leaky, and they can also maintain the glucose metabolism so that energy can be provided to the cells and the tissues. Finally, the last topic we are going to discuss is circulatory arrest. This is the condition in which there is complete stoppage of blood flow. In shock there was reduced blood flow, but in circulatory arrest there is complete stoppage of blood flow, no blood is flowing, and this is indicative of death. Circulatory arrest is the condition which is very close to death, and this occurs when there is cardiac arrest. When the heart stops pumping, the circulation is also going to stop, and it is also seen in ventricular fibrillation. As you have already studied in cardiac arrhythmias, ventricular fibrillation is a very serious disease in which the ventricle is not able to pump, and if the ventricular fibrillation is not reverted immediately, it will lead to cardiac arrest and may result in death. So, this is these two conditions which are concerned with heart and cardiac activity may lead to circulatory arrest. and if the anesthesia which is being given to a patient during surgery is not properly regulated, and the quantity of anesthetic is very high, and the oxygen being given to the patient is not up to normal requirements of the body, this may lead to brain damage or cardiac damage, and this will also lead to circulatory arrest. So, cardiac arrest, ventricular fibrillation and anesthesia overdose can lead to circulatory effects. Whenever there is circulatory arrest, it can cause the heart to deteriorate, it can cause ventricles to fibrillate, it can cause respiratory depression, the lungs can be damaged, and this may lead to improper exchange of gases between the lungs and the blood, and it may lead to permanent brain damage and because of prolonged cerebral hypoxia. So, if these conditions are not immediately reverted, like cardiac arrest, ventricular fibrillation and anesthetic overdose, the circulatory arrest is going to prolong and ultimately lead to damages which are irreparable, like brain damage and lung damage, and it may lead to death.